season 1.
There
Right?
are extras.
No, wait. Is that right? 4 times.
3 times.
Four
Three
times.
times. 4.
There's 8
What
extras.
number words?
Because there were 6 episodes in the first season, and there's 24 here.
Oh, I understand.
Math.
4 times as many. 4 times.
4.
4 times.
All right.
buddy. Not
Numbers are
36.
hard.
Anyway, this is so riveting podcasting, but let's move on to I wanted to mention before we get started that I was thinking about it, and something that at least the 3 guys here have in common that I think no one else in the world has is that we podcasted about The Walking Dead all the way through from the start, starting in 2010, 2009 for you guys, through to the finish here in 2022. I just think that's kind of special and worth mentioning.
That's
Are we
amazing.
the only 2 that went straight through from the beginning to the end?
I think so.
I mean, I guess.
I think we might have been, right?
That is very cool.
If there's
Congratulations,
someone else
everybody.
out there.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you too.
We
I'm a
made
bit of
it.
a completionist, so this is good. This is good for me. This makes my it makes my emotions happy.
Me too. My OCD is tamped down a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did it 12 years. And you two, if I'm not mistaken, are the only ones probably to have ever podcasted about every single episode starting back from the beginning. Is that right?
Well, we didn't miss one. No, that's right.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we missed one.
Did we
Yeah.
miss one, Jason?
I have been off of a few and had
Oh,
hosts.
okay.
I have,
right,
yeah. I've missed a couple. Christina filled in for me
Oh, okay.
right after Jasper was born, so I missed a couple. But
Okay.
Chris has been on every one.
So Chris Fairhurst is the only person in the world to ever have podcasted
Yay.
starting from 2010 every episode of The Walking Dead. You win.
Wow. Somebody call Guinness. I need to get in the book.
That's so cool. Well, as is tradition, I mean, I'm pretty sure people who are hearing me know this, but every year we do a wrap-up crossover between our 2 podcasts, The Walking Dead cast and the Talking Dead podcast. So we're going to do a countdown of 6 points that we want to talk about the season, and we'll do half on our show that you're hearing right now, and then you can go over to the Talking Dead podcast for the second half, and you can find that at talkingdeadpodcast.com. So be sure not to miss that. So we'll get started with The Walking Dead season 11. Before we get into our points, just in general, how did you feel about this season, Chris? Was it a good season?
Yes, I think overall it was a good season, but I do think that it was uneven in some ways, paced a little bit funny, not necessarily through, not in a terrible way. And I sort of understand why it ended up that way, but I, watched a good chunk of it again in preparation for this. And some of the issues I had with it the first time didn't seem as bad, and some seemed worse. But overall, I did like this season. And maybe we'll get into the sort of what I thought was the best parts of it as we go through this. But I think that the final 8 were actually better than the first or the second set of 8 in the season.
Yeah.
So overall, I liked it.
I think I would agree with that. Jason, what about you?
I did like it. I have a hard time coming up with like or dislike because I tend to be very detail oriented, and so I think in terms of nitpicks and how many nitpicks did I have in a particular episode or overall in the season, and I have no idea how many nitpicks I had. Probably more than were warranted, but I think in a general level, I liked it. I didn't rewatch the episodes or rewatch anything for this because I never do. I haven't rewatched an episode ever since, if I watch an episode once or twice prior to podcasting about it, after that, I'm done. And that is abnormal for me. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. But so I did go through and read a little bit about the recaps, what happens in each episode. And I was, as I was going through it, I was thinking, yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, that was okay. So I think overall, there are more things I liked than didn't like. So that's good.
That's a good sign.
I liked it.
I'm similar to you. I have before some of our wrap-ups gone back and rewatched. I didn't have a chance this time, but I went through my notes. But once I'm done with a season, I've never gone back and watched again. And so we had a trivia night among some of our Patreon group the other night, and there were a lot of questions from early seasons, and I sucked at it.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I have a similar experience. Once I'm done with the season, like when we're done here, I wouldn't typically go back and rewatch. And I've realized that there's a lot of things, some of the details about the early years that have started to filter out of my brain a little bit.
I mean, as podcasters who have gone so deeply into it, we have that advantage where we might remember some details that other people would forget, but it's just been so long ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did finish my rewatch of this season. You'll be pleased.
Oh my
to know.
gosh.
Some of I know. Some of it was very quick speed though. Cult of Personality playing at like 2 times speed is quite funny. It was it was much easier to get less emotional when it was going so quickly. I was like, oh okay. Yeah, it was interesting what you said, Chris, about watching it, kind of binging it rather than watching it week by week. I found some things annoyed me less and other things annoyed me more. So I'm pleased to know that wasn't just me. I think the pacing changed a bit when we had the opportunity to just really watch it all through at once. Yeah, so I'm excited to get into that, I think.
What about you generally for this season, Lucy?
I enjoyed it. I think, uneven would be the word I would use to describe it. If I had to rank the thirds, I'd probably go final third. I'd probably go 3, 2, 1, I think. Yeah. But one of my points is about the first one, so I'll save that. But sure. There's good bits in all of them, but overall a bit of unevenness and definitely a sense of like they didn't know the show was finishing, so probably shouldn't have spent so much time on some things. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna rank the thirds, you really want the third to be ranked first. You know, you want the last part to be the best. So I feel the same way that it was, and I'm happy about that because I thought it was a pretty damn great ending. But we'll get to that. In general, I really loved the season. I could have done without the Reapers. The Maggie Negan stuff kind of bothered me. I just rankles me, that stuff. But I did more or less like how the Negan stuff wound up, so that kind of helped. And I love the Commonwealth storyline, unlike a lot of people. I mean, I did feel like it probably could have been a little more succinct, but I really liked it. And I just think also that Angela Kang is really good at making us feel connected to the characters and emotionally invested. And I just felt that especially strongly, not to get too deep into it, but with the Rick Michonne thing at the very end that I'm pretty sure Scott Gimple was completely in charge of. And all of a sudden I just felt totally removed. Like, what are we watching here? It just made me realize how invested I am in the Angela Kang led stuff. Yeah. But there were so many thrilling moments this season and heart swelling moments and funny. And it was just a fantastic season overall. Some real highlights, some of the best zombie stuff in the show ever. So I think it was pretty great. I mean, yeah.
I think your point about Angela is a great one. She came on for season 8 or 9, 9, 10, and 11?
9, 10, 11.
9, yeah.
One of the things she did so well is character stuff, right? I think we've said before, Daryl had nothing to do in season 7 and 8, barely said a line, and all of a sudden he's back and he's great. And that's all her and her writing team's doing, right? So
and like believably back, not like, hello, I'm Daryl and I'm the new Rick. It's like, no, he's believable. It's still Daryl, but he's evolving in a way that is believable. That struck me in the rewatch, actually. I was like, oh yeah, no, they nailed it. They actually did that really, really well.
Yeah. I didn't even like Daryl all that much. I always thought he was overrated. He had his moments, but this last few seasons since Angela Kang came on, I love Daryl now.
Yeah.
He's especially this season.
Yeah.
I like Daryl ever since, as soon as he started collecting ears in season 2, I was all things Daryl. I do remember that about season 2. So yeah, I was way on board. And even in season 1, when he threw a bunch of squirrels at Rick, he had a whole bunch of squirrels that he was capturing. He threw them at Rick. It was awesome.
Oh, those were the days.
As an ear collector, he must have been tempted by John Bernthal, you got to think.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, with those honkers, yeah, for sure.
You cannot unsee them once you do.
For listener context, Jason M is currently wearing 3 ear necklaces. We can see it on Zoom. Nobody else can.
Yeah, I got an ear bandolier.
I don't ask where they're from.
Yeah,
don't bandolier.
Ask. A bandolier.
All right, let's get into our highlights, or whatever you want to call it, points. Let's go in that same order. Chris, Jason, Lucy, me.
Sure. So I'll
Chris,
kick
you
us
first.
off, and I'm going to go right back to the beginning of the first episode of season 11, the cold open, basically.
Yes.
It's a great scene. So just to jog everyone's memory, the group is infiltrating this old army base, searching for food and supplies. They rappel down from a hole or a window in a skylight, I guess, in the ceiling. There's loads of zombies down there. Of course, things don't go perfectly, and they have to fight their way out and narrowly escape. But I thought it was a really well done scene. And one of the things I like about it is, and like about this and any other show, is seeing people execute a plan really well. And I know things didn't go perfectly, but there needs to be some dramatic tension. But this reminded me of way back in, what was it, season 2 or 3?
Season 2, yeah.
When they started the season with them going into a house, just knowing exactly what they were doing. And this was another example of that, but just on a slightly bigger scale and with bigger weapons and all that kind of stuff. And it was all the women that went down too, which I thought was very, very, very cool. And once the zombies wake up and they have to fight them, they don't panic. It's dangerous, but there's some close calls, but they handle it and everyone gets out. There's some close calls, of course, and there's virtually no dialogue. And it just sort of shows us what they're doing. So I thought it was a really great opening to the season and really, really enjoyed it.
And an amazing,
Awesome.
like, I felt like a 28 Days Later reference with the blood drop that, like, fell down and woke up the zombie. Loved that.
It just lands on his face, and that's what sort of
Wakes him up.
wakes him up. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I remember, thinking, oh, this is unusual. We don't see zombies laying down almost like they're asleep. That was unique to that scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a Mission Impossible kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah. And once they are down there fighting them, Daryl and some of the other guys are up and they're helping out from up top, shooting down, and Daryl throws some knives at one point. Yeah, he got lucky with those, I guess. 2 direct hits from the ceiling with some throwing knives, but what are you going to
Not
do?
Daryl.
Yeah, maybe not.
That's fine. Yeah, Daryl can do that.
And one thing I think the show has done really well at times and maybe learned to do more of is have sequences with no dialogue. You can do a really cool, and there was a period in there where there was a lot of speechifying in earlier seasons. Yeah. And now people just say a few words and say a lot more just with the subtext or have action scenes like this where there's no dialogue at all. And I think those are some of the better moments sometimes.
I think so. I really enjoyed the fact that there was no dialogue here. There's hand signals and looks at each other, and it just helps show that they really had a plan to do this and do what they were going to do. And, it's good. I love that kind of stuff.
Let's try that right now on our podcast. Ready?
Yeah, it's great for an awesome podcast.
Yeah.
Meaningful nods.
Someone's getting the side eye.
All right, Jason, what do you got?
So we touched on this already, but basically the point I wanted to make was I finally get to rewatch the show.
Oh,
Because I've been not watching the show on purpose, like rewatching anything on purpose, and it's hard for me. I've talked about this on our podcast a couple of times, but I tend to rewatch shows a lot. I've seen Lost like 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
I'm on my 3rd watching of House, The Sopranos a few times, and I also have a habit of rewatching entire runs of shows in preparation for a new season. Like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are good examples. When season 2 came out, I rewatched season 1. When season 3 came out, I rewatched season 1 and season 2. I did the same thing with Game of Thrones. I rewatched every season every time a new season came out. And it was hard for me not to do that with this show. And I wanted to do it on purpose.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jason, why? Explain. This is interesting.
I do not. It has to do with how my brain works and how I want it to work. I also completely and utterly ignore the internet when it comes to the show. I don't read reviews. I don't watch anything. I have no algorithm that shows me anything Walking Dead related because I do not watch or read anything Walking Dead related. I want everything to come in completely fresh, without any preconceived ideas that anybody may have. all news, every single piece of news I've ever received about The Walking Dead has come from Chris on the podcast. I do not know anything ahead of time. And that's actually going to come into a later point that slightly annoys me. But basically, it comes down to now I get to rewatch the show. And I'm going to start over. And I think that this is something we might do on our podcast. We've talked about the idea of continuing on with things. We may do a rewatch. And I would love to do that, just have new opinions on old stuff. Like I do have a bunch of garbage in my head around what happens, details like a bandolier of ears and a throwing of squirrels and large earlobes that characters may or may not have. So I finally get to rewatch the show, and I'm very excited and looking forward to that.
And you can see all the bits where Chris Fairhurst lied to you about news and told you things that weren't going to happen.
That's okay. Lying is fine. Lying is absolutely fine. It's even encouraged sometimes.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I have a similar. I think I wasn't so conscious of it, but I think I was kind of doing the same thing because I also go back and rewatch other shows sometimes, not quite as methodically as you, but I haven't done that with The Walking Dead, and I have had it in my head that we would do a rewatch once the whole thing was over, and I wanted to go back and just kind of be fresh with the beginning. And I think not only like we've aged, and we've also we'll have the benefit of hindsight, knowing what happens later on in the show, but we become better podcasters too, hopefully. So we'll have better, more nuanced take, maybe just be able to describe the early episodes better than we did back then when we were newer at it. Or at least that's kind of how I feel about myself.
More thinking good while talking.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's,
better.
I know I'm better at that. I'm gooder at that now. Brain work good now.
Yeah, very good, very good.
It's a totally different experience though, going back and rewatching a show. And I haven't done it as much as you guys. It sounds like, but we did go back and rewatch Lost because my kids wanted to do it. So we started at the beginning, did a whole rewatch, and I find it to be a different experience because you know where the story goes. For me, anyways, I'm not as focused on just kind of absorbing it, or maybe I'm less focused on absorbing it, and I can take it in a little bit better, or something like that. I can pick up on the details better when I'm not trying to just follow along.
Well, another big thing for me is sometimes I have hopes of where the show will go. And if it doesn't go there, I'm disappointed, and that distracts me. But when you already know where it's going to go, you don't have that anymore. So you can get a better picture of what's actually going on.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, I think, is that I can sort of see how the show gets from point A to B to C more obviously, and the little things that the writers and producers were doing to sort of tell the story.
Yeah, and in a lot of times, you'll have more information on the rewatch than the writers or the showrunner will have at the time that the episode came out, because they don't know where it's going half the time. They may have a general roadmap, but they may not know exactly how this all fits in yet.
Nope.
So you're bringing a lot to the table as a viewer, right?
But if they're good, they'll make it seem inevitable. And I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but one thing I really love about the Commonwealth is that The Walking Dead started with the collapse of civilization and ended with a semblance of civilization coming back, and I just think that ties it up really nicely. But one more thing on this is I have thought it would be cool to do a rewatch, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm not in any hurry to start that anytime soon. I'm kind of sick of The Walking Dead and want to do some other things for a little while. So I don't know.
Shocker.
How
see,
dare
that's
you?
the thing about you, and the difference between you specifically, Jason, and me is you do other things. Even everybody else does other podcasts. I've never done another podcast. I've been on other podcasts, but I've never actually been actively podcasting about anything else. I'd like to, but this is it. This is my one kick at the can here, I think.
Well, I would love it if you would come on The Mandalorian with me and Chris and Richard sometime and do an episode of that. Just putting that out there. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll talk about Grogu, no problem.
That'd be great. Okay, Lucy.
All right, so I'm going to follow on from Chris Fairhurst. My point is entitled, "The first third wasn't totally shit." I'm putting my case forward for the bits that weren't totally shit. And the top of that list was the season opener. When I was doing my rewatch, I was like, how the hell did I forget this? This was such a good opener for the season. And it set some pretty high stakes for what happened next, in the sense of the operation we see them completing is one of desperation, because that place is crowded with zombies, and they clearly need food desperately in order to undertake that. So it was a nice, powerful start to the season. The other things I will say in favour of the first third not being totally shit, I enjoyed the first introduction to the Commonwealth through the procedures and the interview scenes. I thought that was really effective, and I liked the character beats that we got there. I actually liked the subway sequences in Acheron 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I thought they were really powerful. I loved the murals.
Creepy.
I loved being, creepy, being in an urban setting, seeing all these like untold stories. Friggin' Gage, man. His death was brutal. I'd forgotten about that. He turned up on screen.
Dumb.
I was like, so dumb. I'm sorry, Maggie, but there was loads of time to open that door. Like, so much time. Maggie and Negan stuff down in the subway was kind of interesting. The soundscape of the rain and the wind and the sort of claustrophobia of it, and that sort of straight out of a video game shot of Daryl ploughing his way through a subway car lit up by the shots firing from his gun was pretty amazing. Initially, I didn't hate the Reapers. I thought their introduction was very dark and tense, and they looked really fucking scary, and those episodes where it was just pursuit were really tense. But as with everything, as soon as the masks literally came off, they were just inept and terrible, and you're like, well, why did you manage anything ever? You're all really not very good at your jobs. But the visuals of like the crucifixion and their crazy masks, like that was all great. The Alexandria stuff was, I thought, really good in places in terms of showing how on its knees the community was, and how things like a storm could just bring it to the ground. And there's a particular episode that I'll probably talk about over on Talking Dead. There you go, that's your hook. You can go over and hear me talk about a specific episode on the other podcast that I thought was one of the best of the series that landed in the first third. So yeah, that is my case for the first third wasn't totally shit, and I'll stick to it until you guys persuade me that it actually was quite shit, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, no, I was wrong.
I wouldn't say it was shit. I think there were some things about it that weren't great, but
I will say, I remember you and I, Jason, spent a lot of time talking about Maggie and Negan this season. When I was watching it quickly, I found it less annoying. But it wasn't being dragged over week to week. It actually moved I was looking at the beats and thinking, actually, this is actually, you can kind of see the growth a bit more, whereas it felt like a lot of the time in that first third we were treading water, and we were just like, we just want to go one way or the other. But watching it quickly and not having those weeks in between, that improved it a lot for me. So I think some of my irritation was lifted. But yeah, the end of the Reaper stuff was just crap. Fucking Pope with his stupid hat. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. His hat was stupid.
His hat was stupid. I didn't like the Reapers either. I had this. I think this was one of my backup items, but on the list, because I wasn't in fully formed idea. But other than the idea of the Reapers were crap, I didn't like them. I liked them a little bit more than the Whisperers, but I did not like the Whisperers, in case anybody didn't know that. But I liked the Reapers just a tiny bit more, but they didn't make any sense. Like, I didn't. No. Why would they follow Pope? Why would they follow him?
Like,
I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And his stupid hat.
And his stupid hat.
They did give us some backstory on the Reapers about them being this military unit, right, that came back home and didn't get any respect and things like that. And so he stepped up and sort of brought them together. But he turned into a religious...
They became mercenaries.
Mercenary group, yeah. Which I think was their effort to explain them to us. But I agree. I didn't like almost anything with the Reapers. I didn't mind the sort of final scene where Gabriel was up on the roof and he took out the sniper. I mean, that was kind of exciting. And the whole "Call Me Gabriel" line was awesome.
That was very good.
You know, and then Maggie was shown to be pretty ruthless in that scene by tricking them and then just cold-blooded murdering them, right? You know, like that or hate it, it was at least it generated some emotion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But you also listed a bunch of things about the first 8 episodes, Lucy, that were good. And when I went through it again, I found, before I started the rewatch, I was thinking to myself, okay, I remember the final third pretty well. It's the most recent one. I remember a lot about the first third of episodes, the first 8. I couldn't tell you a damn thing that happened in the middle third before I started watching it. And after I watched a lot of it again, I was like, I think I would rank these number 3, number 1, and then number 2 as my least favorite third. But the biggest difference for me was sort of the pacing. The first third of episodes was not slow in a bad or boring way, but just more methodical, right? Like a lot of time was spent searching for food, a very basic need, right? That's what they were on that mission for. 2 full episodes of them traveling through the subway tunnels. Maggie and Negan spent like a whole episode in a mall. That was where Alden got injured, I think.
Mm-hmm. There was some creepy scenes in there, but yeah.
Totally creepy scenes, but I like it. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it was good. It was like well-told story. What else? There was the assessment at the Commonwealth, I agree, I think was good, but it was long. It was all 2 full episodes of them sort of being assessed and interviewed and figuring out what they were going to do, sort of feeling the place out a little bit. We had the episode where Aaron and Lydia encounter that former Whisperer at Hilltop, and that was to reveal Connie was alive. And there was a whole episode where Carol and some of them went on a mission for missing horses, remember? I'm like, they're spending a whole episode looking for horses. And then when you contrast that with what we got in the third, none of these little things would have taken any importance by then, because they were just trying to speed through to the end. So I liked the first 8.
I really feel that the first third was written before they knew the show was ending. And I feel that it would have maybe been almost all of season 11 if they'd had the chance to have it that way. Like, I was looking at it and I was thinking, like, where would this have cut if we were having a season 12?
Yeah.
And I do feel with the Reapers, there was a lot baked into it that, like, I'm sort of glad we didn't have the Reapers for a full season, but I did feel that first 8 was the one where clearly they had all these things in the bank and then were told, oh, by the way, the show's ending, you need to hurry up. And that you do feel that, I think, very much when you rewatch.
Oh, totally. I think everybody sort of knows that, but I don't know if that's official public knowledge that they told them it was canceled after they'd done that first.
I think they might have mentioned it at some point, that they started writing the season before they found out.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious to me, but I think you're right. And who knows, right? You have to remember that if there was a season 12, there would have only been 16 episodes in season 11,
right? Exactly.
Which still would have been too much Reapers, but it would have just been so different and told such a different way.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to have this be my first point, but since we're talking about it, I'll talk about Pope, the Reapers, and Leah. And the Reapers were my biggest disappointment of the season. I felt they were repetitive, especially after the Whispers, which I did like. I thought the Whispers were incredible. And we've seen so many psycho groups in The Walking Dead, the Claimers, the Termites, the Saviors. And so maybe if the Reapers would have come earlier on in the show before 1 or 2 of those, they would have been more interesting. I don't know. Maybe not. But
Jason, would you say they were repetitive?
Repetitive.
Zing.
Singer. There you go. That's it. That's my joke for the night. I'm done.
I like it.
I think the main point of them was to give Maggie and Negan a common enemy that they had to work against together. I think that's why they were there. They came in with Maggie, if you remember. I mean, they seemed pretty formidable at first because they'd killed everyone that Maggie knew except for this small band of leftovers that
they all got killed.
Yeah, they killed them all anyways.
All except for Elijah. But I also think it was to make a dilemma for Daryl, whose ex-girlfriend was in the Reapers. That was another wrinkle. And then tie in these themes of violent extremist religion to get Gabriel involved a little bit. But they were a bit like the Termites because they had trauma that turned them ruthless. And but they were more formidable because they knew how to kill, because they were soldiers / mercenaries.
Mm-hmm.
And Maggie came back after her absence on the run from these guys, having had her people killed. So that was how we were, they came in with the reintroduction of a favorite character. So that kind of elevated them a little bit. And then there's the whole factor of Leah, who, Daryl hadn't had any kind of romantic contact for 9 seasons of the show. So at least in theory, it's an interesting idea for Daryl to finally get a girlfriend and then have her end up being an ex-member of one of these psycho groups. But in practice, I didn't hate Leah as a character as much as many, especially in her first episode. But I just didn't like the Reapers, and Leah was just an awful person. So I felt bad for Daryl. Like, just forget her.
Daryl only liked her because she had a cool dog.
Yeah, he's good for the puppy.
Right.
People have been in relationships for worse reasons than that.
One thing I do like about the Reapers is they kind of skewer violent extremist religion. They thought they were ordained by God and use that to justify heinous acts, which does happen in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Pope is like, God is here. He's angry. I'm angry. So he's basically like this cult leader. But when Leah killed Pope, I was happy. And then she sided with her people against Daryl. And I'm like, well, fuck her. And then, but I did think the stuff at the end was actually the best when they had the standoff with Leah and the remaining Reapers with Maggie, Daryl, and Elijah and Negan. And then Gabriel was up at the top with his, sniper rifle, and Maggie told them they could drop their weapons and they could go, and then she just hunted them down like she was a Terminator, boom, boom. And I usually don't like that kind of ruthless killing, but I thought they deserved it because they slaughtered her people for no reason. So even though it was chilling, I was like, yes, that was badass.
She was also giving Elijah what she couldn't give herself, because she wanted to kill, her whole thing has been wanting to kill Negan, and for whatever reason she's not doing that. And she's promised Elijah that, they'll die for what they did to his sister, and in that moment it's kind of this catharsis of like, I'm gonna fucking do this.
She got his permission. Didn't she, he gave her the nod or something?
Oh yeah.
I had forgotten about the sister of Elijah, actually. I'd forgotten that was a thing, and that factored into Maggie's decision making there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, they killed all her friends.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
And then last, when, a little later on, Leah's the only one that survived. She gets the drop on Maggie in the forest at night. Then Maggie wakes up tied to a chair in a cabin. And that fight was incredible. So raw, with knives and just vicious. And she was going to kill Maggie, and then Daryl came in and killed his ex. I love that whole sequence.
It was brilliant. That was one of the best fights we've seen. And it looked like it was Lynn Collins and Lauren Cohen doing most of it. It didn't look like stunt doubles.
Well, they hated each other on set, so it helped.
Yeah, it was documentary footage.
They just let's get this on camera, people. Look what they're doing.
Quick, roll them.
Yeah, they switched to digital cameras by then, so they could just press record and away they go.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The question I have is, why the hell did Elijah have what looked to me like a Reaper mask on?
Well,
never answered.
I have an answer, but I have an answer that kind of delves into the realm of an alternate reality. And this is actually my next point. Sorry, Chris, I'm going to jump the gun and jump to my next point, if that's okay.
Amazing.
And it has to do with Maggie coming back and the coincidence that Maggie shows up at the same time with Elijah and the Reapers. I really, really wanted Maggie to be a bad guy when she came back. When she left after ordering the hanging of Gregory, I thought that was such an evil thing to do that she didn't do it in such a good way. She murdered him, essentially, is what happened there. And she went away for a long time. And she comes back, and she has somebody that wears a mask with her, and they're fighting against other people that wear masks. I was like, yeah, Maggie's the head of the Reapers, and for some reason she got ousted and wants revenge. And then she's going to be the bad guy of the season. And I so wanted that to be true. And I fought for that in my mind, for that to be true for such a long time, until it obviously came out that it was not true. But out there somewhere, there's a reality where Maggie's the bad guy of the season. and I so wanted that to be true.
I heard you talking about that on your podcast because I listen every once in a while, and I was kind of hoping that was true along with you too.
Yeah, because they haven't done that, right? They've, we've had external bad guys since season 1, but we've never had one of our own become the bad guy. And so
Rick
I
came
that
close, but yeah,
well, Rick came close
at times.
so
No, you're right.
maybe Shane,
Maybe Shane.
but I really
had,
wanted that to be happen.
Hallucination Michonne, but not in reality.
That's right.
Yeah, when she was like, "I'm a savior because I'm tripping balls." Yeah, that one.
Maybe Lori. Lori could be considered a bad guy.
Definitely a bad driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. See, I forgot all about that when she flipped that car.
Yeah. So that was my next item. Yeah.
I think tough sell to have Maggie come back and be a bad guy, but I'm on board a little bit. Like, it certainly would have been different and would have flipped things on its head,
Yeah.
And when she told that story about how she
her
found those
story.
people like bound up and were they like armless and legless or something?
Oh,
and
Jinx,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
horrible. Yeah.
killed them all and took their food. I mean, in the alternate reality, that could have been part of what set her off in the evil path, just having really traumatic experiences like that.
Oh, and I had a theory that Herschel, her son, had died, and she just kidnapped somebody else and replaced him.
Wow.
I figured that was, if she's going to be a bad guy, she's going to go all in, right?
Yeah.
So maybe she didn't kill
Incredible.
Herschel, but he died, and she replaced him with a new kid.
Right.
Anyway, that never happened. It only happened in my mind.
Fan fiction.
Fan fiction, man. Write it.
Chris?
Well, sure. If we're gonna, I think we'll stick in the first bit here. There is one particular episode that I want to talk about because I thought it was really good. Lucy, you know what I'm about to talk about.
I know what you're about to say. Yeah.
So
I think it's one of my items too, so let's all talk about it.
the Connie and Virgil episode called On the Inside, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the horse hunt. I thought that was
As
No.
fascinating- Yeah, as fascinating as that horse search for horses was. So this is the one where they take refuge in this house that is populated by these feral humans, not zombies, but feral humans that are trying to get them. And maybe when we recorded about this, I called it a haunted house, but I don't really think of it as haunted. It's more like just a horror house vibe, and there is so much good stuff in there. It was scary. We get these incredible scenes from Connie's perspective where it's all silent and you really get the terror of what that would be like, not being able to hear things sneaking up behind you or whatever. The whole thing was terrifying. There were some tropes in there, I think. The audience sees a monster like up in the background, but the main characters in the foreground don't see it. The two characters are questioning each other's sanity a little bit, which you've seen a million times, but it was just really well done. It worked in this case. Yeah. And that was it. I felt like there was an endless supply of these feral humans too, because even when they escaped, like more were running out the door after them.
Yeah.
But
Well, they're humans. They breed.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Endless supply. But it was just all really, really well done. And I loved all that part of the episode, which I kind of want to focus on because there was still some Reaper stuff in that episode that actually was some of the worst Reaper stuff that I disliked the most. The one scene I want to call out was when Daryl, that was the same episode. Daryl had to torture
I hate
Frost.
Yep.
I think his name was Frost.
Oh, yeah.
One of
that. That
Maggie's
was
guys
brutal.
when he was pretending to be with them, right? And
Right.
I don't mind that idea, but I hated the torture scene. I didn't like it at
hate
all.
it.
Well, he's like,
Awful.
I got to make it convincing, so I'm going to chop your finger off.
Yeah,
Oh.
he chops his finger off. Exactly.
Awful.
Pretty disturbing. And he was like, please don't he's like, don't really say it, okay? I'm gonna chop your finger off, but you got to keep a secret.
Yeah.
I really liked that episode too. I thought it was, and that was actually another one of my points is to talk about this. The whole silence from Connie's perspective was amazing, and those creepy people in the house. There were a lot of them, and it was a horror house because there was caverns in the walls. There was secret sliding doors, pocket doors that they could close from inside the walls, which is the sliding door closed and cut off Connie, and that's where the silent bit happened. And those tropes you're talking about, Chris, I like to think of those as Three's Company tropes. When the audience knows something that the characters don't, and comedy ensues.
There's some kind of misunderstanding.
Usually that Mr. Roper thinks that Jack is gay, and Jack doesn't think that, and inappropriate comedy ensues. So that's the kind of thing that they did in this episode was very Three's Company type stuff, only in a horror genre and not in a inappropriate comedy
terrifying
genre.
way.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it was the best I think Virgil ever was on the show too.
Oh yeah,
hell yeah,
definitely.
By far.
Yeah.
Because Virgil, I thought, I hate this guy. This guy's the worst.
Yeah.
And then this episode, I was like, oh, they're already turning me around on him.
I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, it didn't take long.
What happened to Virgil?
Yeah, we don't know what happened to Virgil.
He just kind of disappeared, didn't he? I mean, he may have appeared in another episode, but I don't think we got any kind of character arc out of him after this.
We didn't see him at the end.
No.
The one thing about this episode, I loved it too. Greg Nicotero directed it, and it's clear he had a lot of fun with it. But there's a big Department of Suspension of Disbelief thing about would these feral people really be? Would they go feral? Would they be holding up in this house? You got to kind of just push that aside and enjoy.
I like to think they're just chilling when people aren't there, like they're sitting in the living room and stuff in their loincloths, just like chatting. Oh, people, get in the walls, get in the walls. And they're like,
because they had to make the secret passages and everything.
Well, we have to remember that this universe is different than, like the Walking Dead universe is different than ours. In the Walking Dead universe, everybody is extremely theatrical. Everybody has to have a style to them. We had the Kingdom, we have the Commonwealth, we had the Whisperers. Everybody has to have a gimmick, right? So
very true,
even these guys, they're thinking, okay, we have to have a gimmick. What's our gimmick? We're going to cover ourselves in white paint and run on all fours, and build passageways in the walls and freak people out. Let's do that. Okay.
Speaking as an ex-student theatre person, I can say that's very viable as a way to live. Maybe not the loincloths, though.
I wouldn't be able to run on all fours. That'd be hard on my knees.
They must have got contortionists in, and it was. This was one of mine, Chris. I'm gonna jump the gun, and just talk about it now because it's too good not to. I liked it so much. I thought it was a bottle episode. When I rewatched it, I was like, "Huh? There was Reaper stuff in this." I'd clearly blocked that from my memory because I was like, "Oh yeah, that amazing bottle episode," and then I was like, "Oh, it wasn't a bottle episode at all." It was completely a horror house. I think it was one of the best episodes of the show. I'm a big X-Files fan, and there were a few moments in it and storylines that really made me feel like this is indebted a lot to X-Files. But the Walking Dead as a whole is, because I think the X-Files kind of changed the way horror and kind of sci-fi were done on TV. Yeah. So that kind of horrifying, tense, grotesque way that it was set up was amazing. It was just like a love letter to horror. It reminded me, I mean, part of me wondered if it was the house from Maggie's bleak-ass story in the first episode, but I don't think it was. I think it was something new and different. There was just this amazing manipulation of like sound and visuals. One of the things I've loved most since the introduction of Connie and Kelly is the way that they've incorporated Lauren Ridloff being deaf into all the storylines in quite an organic way. And I loved the way that we were like suffocated by that, not being able to hear and getting a sense of what it would be like to be in that situation. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing, aside from the fact that Lauren Ridloff is amazing and this was such a good welcome back, I think it's also Virgil's frustration was really tangible and totally understandable, because if you've met someone and you cannot communicate with them because you don't sign, you don't know if they read lips, you're not always going to have a notebook and pencil, the stakes are just so much higher. And that scene where she's staring out in the wall and he doesn't know if it's her or one of the loincloth people banging on the wall, and then she can see behind him that someone is crawling up behind him. Oh my God, it's so well done. It just puts the fear right into you. And I feel at the end as well, like when they're exiting the house, there's real sort of, I don't know, almost Night of the Living Dead vibes of just like that, the calm after the storm where everything's wrong. And like you've just gone through this really traumatic thing. Thankfully, none of our protagonists got shot. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. That was one of my points overall, was just that episode. If you had to do a top 10 episodes of The Walking Dead ever, for me, that would be on there. But only that storyline, because I can't do torture.
No.
They were really tired, right? Weren't they like...
Yes.
That's why if you had that happen, like you're just so, we need a place to stay, and you end up in the horror house, from then on, you're going to be like, I don't know, like, should we stay here? We better check this place. You can be a little bit careful about where you shack up.
Like, the other thing I'd forgotten is, like, Connie's got major PTSD from being in the Horde for so long. Right. So, like, there's all these flashes of her being, like, flashing back to being in there, which must have been complete sensory overload. Brilliant, just so good, good. I'm so glad you brought it up because it was great.
She looks through the boards, right, and we see the flashes of the zombies, and then she's in the bathroom and looks through the hole and actually sees an eye. That would be so terrifying and confusing, and they portrayed it really well. But I had the same experience as you. I thought back on that, like, that whole episode was that, right? That's all
it was amazing.
We saw, and it was amazing, and it was one of my favorites. And then I rewatched and had the Daryl torture stuff, and I didn't like any of that.
Fingernails getting pulled out.
Keep the two apart, and I think they had a real winner on their hands there.
Yeah, it was a good episode and it was a bad episode. All mixed in.
I think I didn't podcast on that one, Jason. I think I was off that week. I think I didn't get a chance to talk about it with you. So I got a chance to tell you all my opinions on it. So yeah, I'll use that as my number 2.
Okay, for my second one, I'm gonna jump around a little and just talk about the Commonwealth, because the Commonwealth was one of my favorite things about the season, because, well, I've mentioned on the podcast a few times, probably going back years, that I think with a post-apocalyptic show, it must be a challenge to do complicated stories, because there's not a complicated society. There's not complexity of places to go and things to do and jobs to have and goals to go for. It's all just about try not to be killed for the most part, and there's these bad people, stuff like that. So now with organized civilization comes laws and money, economy, ways of bettering your situation that don't require violence, but there's also downsides. There's a justice system that can be corrupted, and judges in the pockets of politicians, and covert organizations that kidnap people and send them to forced labor camps. Like with this kind of society, there's the opportunity for bad people to leverage it and control people. And so I thought it was really interesting to see our characters that we've come to know and love in this context of this kind of lawless survival world plop back into something like the world we know. Back into it for them, but for us, it's the first time we've seen them in this context. So it felt like they were dropped into another show where Yumiko's a lawyer, Daryl's a soldier, Connie's a reporter. And I think a lot of people didn't like it because it didn't feel like The Walking Dead. But for me, I like fresh new things, especially after 10 seasons. They needed to go in new directions, and it was a bold move to do that. But the Reapers did feel more like traditional Walking Dead, and man, I was so bored with that. So, and also the whole thing about how this show started with the loss of civilization and ended with the return to it, and our characters struggling with whether they even want that. And the whole thing
how do you want it if you do have it? How do you do it without replicating the problems?
And they really did a good job with the problem. I mean, first off, it was great to have open the season with them starving in Alexandria after what happened with the Whisperers. It's dilapidated, and they really, they need food. And that amplified the contrast between the luxury and abundance of the Commonwealth with this Lance Hornsby narrated orientation video showing the happy citizens enjoying bikes and sports and music and bread and doctors and all this stuff. It's like, Yeah, we want that back. And I mean, after being in the zombie apocalypse for 10 years, I'm pretty sure I'd be glad to see all that stuff. I was trying to think about it, or maybe I would just be like, oh no, I've learned to be self-sufficient now. I don't want to be weak again. I don't know.
There's a nice moment where Yumiko walks into the bakery and Eleanor Matsuura does a really good job of like what that must smell like after years of not being around cake. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, yeah.
I mean, I just go on a diet for a month and I'm like, cake.
And so much ice cream. There was so
the ice cream you could want.
Is like the main symbol of why this place is so great. But then there's unrest. There are people getting assigned jobs according to their ability and past experiences, but wealth and power isn't distributed fairly, so it's oppressive. There's no opportunity for advancement, even though they give the illusion of that. And Pamela saying things like, there's a natural order to things, which basically means me and my family are the rulers, and that's how it should be. And this classist entitlements and inequality with Magna and Yumiko being girlfriends and equals in the ZA, but then Yumiko's a high-powered lawyer with at this swanky cocktail party where Magna's the server. Just all that stuff. Yeah. I thought it was really fascinating and tension-filled and kind of tragic and interesting, And I liked that Maggie never trusted the Commonwealth, and she told Lydia this story about corporate farmers that tried to buy out her dad's farm. And she said if they'd accepted their help, they'd have lost their farm. And she thinks basically that the Commonwealth is going to swallow them up and they'll have no agency. And that turned out to be the truth. Yeah. They did swallow up all those communities. And then by the end, this explosion destroys the estates where the wealthy entrenched lives, which is very symbolic. And then 1 year later, we see Mercer and Ezekiel standing there, governor and lieutenant governor, looking all sharp. And
so fly.
Ezekiel giving this speech, my fellow citizens, just being all magnanimous. And I had predicted he might end up the leader. Before that, I started predicting he would probably die. I wish I hadn't said that.
I know. We were both just like, well, he's dying soon anyway. So we were so convinced. We're like, yeah, he's dead.
One thing that I feel like in hindsight is missing from this story is I want to know what Ezekiel did to improve things, because we just saw all the problems of modern civilization, and then Ezekiel, our friend, is governor and it's all fine, but we don't know how or why or how they changed anything.
Well, because also Ezekiel is a flawed leader. Like, everyone's a flawed leader. There's no such thing as a perfect leader. But with the kingdom, he was willing to bury his head in the sand about things. And he wasn't a bad leader by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, look what happened to all his people. They're dead.
I mean, all his people did die.
And his tiger.
Yeah, that's true. And his tiger. And his adopted son. And but maybe.
But no, I mean, you have a good point. Like, I worry because Ezekiel kind of failed with the kingdom, but But this other point is even separate. Like, I want to know, I that's what we talked about a lot on the podcast. Like, what are the problems with the Commonwealth? Well, there's this inequality and all the things I just mentioned. And how would you solve that? What kind of government would you have? What kind of government is Alexandria? It seems more socialist. So did the Commonwealth become more socialist? We don't really know.
Well, it's interesting as well because so much of this narrative was tied up, I think, with America. Like, because there's loads of pointed shots of like when Lance is flipping the coin at one point, it really focuses in on United States of America and the graffiti down in the tunnels, and it felt like the closest to political The Walking Dead has ever gotten. It was definitely saying something about how
the governor had a little bit of that in Woodbury, but yes.
Yeah, but and the one that really struck me and I thought was pretty edgy for America was the critique of healthcare. I quite liked that. I was like, oh yeah, it does suck that it's not open to all. So I'm assuming one of Ezekiel's first policies would have been about healthcare, but then it does raise the question of like, how do you manage it with limited resources and all that jazz. It's funny, Jason, what you were saying. Like, it made me think of this thing I had to learn on like a stupid work course many years ago about I think it's called the pyramid of needs, and like your basic needs are like safety, food, water, and then after you've got that, your needs start to kind of build on that. It's like, well, what do you need next? What
social and artistic and stuff.
Yeah. And I think this season was about ice cream, tiger, wrestling.
Everybody needs a wrestling.
Yeah.
Everyone needs wrestling. And I guess another thing you said that I thought was interesting was about how we saw the devastation from the Whisperer War. And because one of the things that I wanted this to be a point, but I couldn't really put substance to it. One of the things that comes up again and again this season is people talking about the cost of something. They're like, this is what it costs. This is what it's going to cost us. What will it cost you to do this? And on the one hand, it's about introducing money again, which is weird. And on the other hand, it's about these like immaterial costs of like life or your soul or your kindness or something like that. And the fact that we opened up the season with what the cost of the Whisperer War was, I think was really strong. I think you made a good point there about that. Yeah.
And the cost of a civilization like the Commonwealth or any modern civilization is that you need resources and you need workers to do all the dirty jobs, and you need to, like, all the stuff Lance was doing, which I'm sure we'll talk about more, where you have to go and do the dirty work that behind the scenes sometimes. And so it's not like we think of with America, I think of, people think the 50s of this glorious time where everything was perfect, but they don't look at the dirty underbelly of what it takes to make all that happen,
Exactly.
So they explored that a lot.
I think of the 50s as a utopian hellscape. It's just it's on the top layer, all the pictures and the all the TV shows and everything looks like a perfect
Norman
life,
Rockwell.
but there was so much shit going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And this season of The Walking Dead was kind of like that too.
Yeah.
With the record stores and the ice cream and then the prison camps and,
Yeah. All the commentary of the U.S. in this in this show and in this season. And Jason, you're the only one who's American on this podcast.
I know.
I'm glad we
We're
have
like-
at least one.
The
It's
universal healthcare gang are going to gang up on you and be like, yeah, explain your health policies to us, Jason. God. Like,
I really have connected with a lot of non-Americans in our network, and like Amelie and Anwin, and it's really, and you, Lucy, and Derek, and I didn't do that on purpose, but I kind of love it. I also love America. For anyone listening, USA.
USA.
Yeah, don't get any misconceptions, anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Jason's just been taken from the room by someone masked, so it's just the three of us now.
So universal health care in Canada at least comes with very long wait times to get anything done. So just
very true.
That's the flip side of that coin.
Very true. I kept my Canadian health card. It's not valid for anything. I just kept it because I thought it was neat.
Yeah,
like,
why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Listening to you talk about the Commonwealth, Jason, made me think that the show asked a lot of questions about this kind of society, about inequality and all those sorts of things, and wealth distribution and whatever else, without really answering too many of them.
And also what comes next after rebellion, which is what
Yes.
Lance asked. Yeah.
And that was the big one. It's like, that's right. They were all saying, you want to fix things here, or you want to take power here, but like, do you even know what that means? What's that going to do to you?
How are you
What's
going to
it
make it
cost?
better? Yeah.
How are you going to make it better? Exactly. And some answers maybe would have been nice, but there probably were some in there to a degree. But I also don't think you necessarily need to like spell it all out for people. Sometimes posing the question is enough. In this case, though, they did raise a lot of questions and then kind of just glossed over it right at the end.
Yeah, I wish I would have just had some idea of what Ezekiel would have done. I think, one clear one is to try to make healthcare more available to more people somehow.
Yeah. Well, no one ever said it was easy, but I guess they've got a plan. But listening to you talk about it, it just made me think about it a little bit more even, and I think appreciate it a little more. The Commonwealth was big and fast moving, and like, yes, they had all these themes and these questions, but I also felt like they kind of just moved on from them really quick, sometimes one to the next kind of. The one thing I will say that I never really got a good feeling for is that, and this is hard, I get it, it's hard, but it's supposed to be 50,000 people. It never felt like 50,000 people to me. It felt like a small
There's
group.
only one street.
There's one square with a little train station, and
I feel like they addressed that. I think someone asked about it or something, and they were like, yeah, COVID restrictions meant that we just couldn't do the scale that we wanted to do. But there were points where I was like, come on, guys, it feels like a rinky-dink like backlot on Warner Brothers or something.
Towards the end, they did a little better with when the zombies were swarming in the
There were some good
lower
aerial
quarters
shots
or whatever.
But the first time you
With the
see the
wall around it.
Commonwealth, you're just like, what the fuck is that big? Like, I thought it was like 3 streets.
They did try to do it with the aerial shots, especially when it exploded too. I think there was a scene where you see the part that's exploded, but there's also this whole other section of the city that's the rest of it.
And in the, instead of